though you're playing it much later than a lot of other people.
Mm.
And also, yeah, Isabelle is maybe one of the greatest video game characters ever. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm glad they added her. And that was something before we get into New Horizons. I was kind of wondering, like, oh, are they going to like make a new Isabelle? Like, how can you top Isabelle? And
And
then
they can't.
yeah, Nintendo realized, oh, we can't, so we're just going to use Isabelle again.
Well, she's so cute, and as many people point out, she is a belle. She's a bunch
Yes.
of bells. Like, it's just so cute. I loved having Isabelle as like your assistant, your like secretary.
I always found
I
it
loved
amusing
all that.
too because she was like the polar opposite of everybody's favorite character, Tom Nook.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
breaking kneecaps. Because he wants your money. Tom Nook is kind of scary when you think about it. He's like very aggressively wants you to keep building your house. And you're like, maybe I like my house just how it is. And he's
Maybe
like,
I want to
"Nope."
stay in the tent.
Yeah, there's the great debate of like, oh, is Tom Nook good or is he evil? Because yeah, he wants your money, but he doesn't give you like interest, and there's no deadline. So people are saying, oh, actually, if he was in the real world, he'd be quite generous.
Yeah.
But
In
it
the
is
game,
kind of
he'll find you.
Hey guys, I'm Bill, a one-time Instagram vlogger and now a podcaster.
And I'm Alex, the chaotic neutral,
And together we are the Gaming and Collecting Podcast
a brother-sister duo,
that talks about gaming.
and also anime.
And don't forget the collecting, sometimes.
Ah, forget it. We're just a nostalgia podcast at this point.
But anyways, guys, thanks for joining us as we discuss the games that shaped us. So, this is usually where I'd say, how you been? But we actually have a guest for this episode, and I'd like them to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Mono, the host of Tokyo Game Life, which is a Tokyo-based video game podcast mostly focusing on Nintendo and gaming culture in Japan's capital. And I'm really happy to be here on the Gaming and Collecting Podcast.
Oh, thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah,
No
we're so
problem.
happy to have you.
So I guess going from there, how you been?
I've been great. In terms of gaming, I've been doing mostly just two things. Number one is playing a lot of Fire Emblem Engage, which is the
Nice.
newest
Nice.
Fire Emblem game on the Switch. I'm a pretty big Fire Emblem fan, but kind of not a fake fan, I would say, but I am a tier lower than the hardcore Fire Emblem fans because I really got into the series once they introduced casual mode, where your
Mhm.
characters don't permanently die. I bought the first Fire Emblem game for the GBA, and I quite liked it. But halfway through the game, I thought, "Oh, I'm tired of resetting all the time, so
Mhm.
I think I'm done." But then Awakening came out, and they said, "Hey, we have a baby mode for if you don't want all your guys to die." So I got into that, and I really loved it. And ever since then, I've been playing all the Fire Emblem games, and I've been having a great time with Engage as well. It's kind of different in terms of atmosphere from Three Houses, which is a game I really loved. It was my
Oh yeah,
game of
Three
the year
Houses.
in
Three Houses is
2019.
my favorite. Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Three Houses is definitely my favorite in the series.
yes, I love that game so much as well. But this game also has a lot of really good ideas, and I think they're implemented pretty well. So I have about maybe 7 or so story chapters left, so maybe about a third or 25% left of the game, and I would still put Three Houses above it, but it is a really excellent Fire Emblem title.
Nice.
And the other gaming thing I've been doing is just watching a lot of Tears of the Kingdom videos, because last week we had the Nintendo Direct, and we got a brand new trailer for the newest Zelda game. And ever since then, I've just been watching a lot of analysis videos and theory videos about, oh, what does this mean? Oh, did you notice this weird pattern on this like corner of this screenshot? So I really shouldn't be diving into so much Zelda stuff right now because it's still quite a bit of ways. So I don't want to, get overly hyped for something that's not coming this month or next month or the month after next. But it's really hard to resist once, people make these amazing videos breaking down all these really intricate things that they noticed in the trailer. And yeah, that's the game I'm most excited about.
Nice. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, I've been good. I've been playing One Piece Odyssey, and then I've been watching One Piece. Um, because I wanted to recap on the arcs that the game was going over, and then it just turned into me binging One Piece for like the up I don't know time. So I've just been watching One Piece. I watched JoJo's too though recently. I watched all of part 3 and part 4, and then I started part 5, and then I kind of like started watching One Piece. So that's what I've been doing. Collecting. I haven't really been getting any. I haven't got really any games recently, but I did get 2 new figures. From a new show that I really like. Welcome to Demon School Aruma. And I got 2 figures for that. So been collecting those. And I have another one that should be here tomorrow because I have a problem, but it's fine.
Yeah. And for me, I've mostly so work's been killing me lately and I've been really
Oh yeah.
tired. So I've been mostly coming home and I finished Persona 4 again. I've beaten the game 17 times now. So
Good job.
I have a problem, but that is also my favorite game of all time. Other than that, though, I'm still slowly making my way through The Last of Us Part 2. I got to a point where the game was depressing me in real life again, so I had to put it down for a bit.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it for Liv.
I will at some point. It's one of those games that's like I'll get into it and then like I'll hit a point in the game where like the world just kind of like hits me in real life and I'm like I don't want to play this anymore. So I'll put it down and then I'll get back to it probably like in a couple weeks once we have a open time because other than that, like me and Alex are going to be getting ready to do our next anime swap pretty soon. So we're going to go through
Yeah.
our next 2 shows and then other than that, I haven't been collecting too much. Like I just like splurged like a lot at when I went to our old local retro game store a couple weeks ago, and I dropped like $400. So I'm gonna have to
Wow.
take a take a break for a little bit.
Ugh.
But I saw the 2 Izuna games on DS, and I just couldn't pass them up. So other than that, though, I did pick up the new Final Fantasy. I'm gonna butcher the name of the Theatrium Final Bar Line.
I don't
And
think anyone knows how to pronounce it, but I always just call it theater rhythm because it's those 2 words jammed together. But I don't think there's any wrong way to say it.
Yeah, I just call it the Final Fantasy music game.
Yeah.
But I picked that up yesterday, and I'm looking forward to giving it a shot at some point because I do love me some SquareSoft music. But yeah, other than that, it's been pretty lean. I finished Spy Family finally too, so they can take that off the list.
Woo.
But yeah, anything else we want to cover before we get into our topic?
I'm good on my end.
Awkward
Okay.
silence.
That's the
I did
GNC
have
podcast.
I did have a One Piece question. What arcs are the game covering? Is it like the latest one?
No, so One Piece Odyssey, it's not necessarily covering arcs specifically, but it's more of taking arcs and reinventing them in ways.
Okay, like a reimagining.
Well, kind of. So the whole plot, I haven't gotten super far in it yet, but the whole kind of plot is that it's an RPG, so they have to kind of take the characters that are strong and make them weak. Um, and part of that is like, okay, they get all their like powers basically taken away. In order to get their powers back, they have to go back through their memories. Um, and basically like relive through their memories in order to get their abilities back. So you're not going back in time, and you're not like you're going back in your memory. So things aren't always the same. So it's not directly
Hmm.
the arc, but it's like kind of inspired by the arc with something similar and some things not similar.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's kind of hard for like anime games to kind of reach people who aren't watching the anime because if you're not watching it, you're like 700 episodes behind. And so you might have no interest in the game. But of course, they want to make the game as appealing as possible. Even people
Mm.
who maybe don't watch the series, oh, maybe if the gameplay looks good, they'll jump into it. So it can
Mm.
be hard to balance that. I remember I bought like Naruto Ultimate Storm 4 or whatever it's called, and I had no idea what was going on because it was just like
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it was like the ending of the Naruto series, so I had no context of like who is who, what is happening. But the gameplay was kind of fun. But even then, I just have to sit through these very long cutscenes of things I don't know what they're talking about.
Mm.
So I think the Odyssey, the One Piece Odyssey way, is a bit, an interesting take on how to get people caught up, or for people to kind of pick and choose, what their One Piece knowledge is.
Yeah, I've definitely by playing it, like I've definitely noticed that they kind of make it so that like I think anyone playing could pick it up and like kind of go with it, which is nice. I don't think you necessarily need a huge background knowledge of the characters. Because I think also one thing is like it's a very goofy show, so like a lot of it, like regardless of if you know background knowledge, it's just like the main character is a guy made of rubber, so like you know it's gonna be silly. So I think it kind of works,
Hmm.
It actually kind of reminds me a little of the old PS2 game Inuyasha and the Secret of the Curse Mask, which was an Inuyasha RPG that kind of like it didn't recap old events. It kind of had its own standalone story, so it was kind of like it wasn't super intimidating for people who hadn't watched the show, but it had a lot of nods for people who were like longtime fans.
Mm.
Although that game is unnecessarily difficult with its random encounters that are absurd, but that's tangent for another day. So I guess now to jump into it, so like we had previously done with our Sims episode, one of our goals for this season is we want to revisit a bunch of our older episodes, and particularly the first 5, I want to say, are some of the roughest ones we did. And
Whoops.
one of those was Animal Crossing, which was actually the 3rd episode of the show. And at the time we recorded that episode, I believe New Horizons had like just come out,
Yeah,
or it had been
Oh.
out for like maybe like half a year or so.
I think it was pretty recent.
Yeah,
Or
'cause
at least we had gotten it only recently.
because we were still in, because I know it came out right at the start of COVID and everything, and I remember we because we started the podcast still in the middle of like COVID and all that stuff, so
Yeah.
it was definitely very early in on that. And at that point, I mean, Alex has always been the hardcore Animal Crossing fan, and I was always the long running Mister would play for like a day and then get bored and never pick it up again.
Yeah.
And New Horizons was the first one that I really got into.
Hmm.
But I guess to start this off, we should probably go back to the start of the series, and that's where things get interesting because Animal Crossing actually came out originally on April 14th, 2001, and it was actually exclusively for the Nintendo 64,
Ugh.
only in Japan.
Hmm.
Now, Mono, you had said previously that you're currently based in Japan. How long
Yes.
have you actually been there?
I've been here since 2017, so
Okay.
about when the Switch came out. So I think of it like, oh, the Switch era is also my era in Japan.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
I wasn't sure if you had been there like longer and you'd actually remembered the N64 version of that game or not.
I do own the N64 version of the game, believe it or not, because, like you said before, the history of the launch of Animal Crossing is quite interesting in that it came out in April or May of 2001 in Japan for the N64. Originally, it was supposed to be like an N64 disk drive game, which is a Japan-only peripheral
Mhm.
that attaches to the bottom of your N64, and only a few games for that disk drive came out. Maybe most famous, maybe Doshin the Giant, which was later again ported to the GameCube. And so the N64 was not super popular in Japan, but Animal Crossing was,
Understandable.
yes, understandably, especially that was the times like PlayStation, dominance, especially,
Yeah.
and even Sega Saturn. They were not as popular, but they were pretty neck and neck with
I should
N64.
probably give you a little podcast lore. Alex utterly despises the N64.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So just ignore her if she's ever making a comment about it in the background.
Okay, no problem.
The
But
dark Jack West brother, everyone.
But yeah, it was the last like Nintendo published game for N64. And even though, N64 was not super popular in Japan, but the game did sell quite well. So they just ported it to the GameCube that year, in Japan at least. And it was called Dobutsu no Mori Plus. Dobutsu no Mori is the Japanese name for Animal Crossing, which just means
Mhm.
Animal Forest.
I knew
Uh,
that, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Which is kind of a better name since now it's on an island. So, well, actually, it's a worse name since it's on an island. You're not in the forest anymore. Um, but so there's actually 4 different versions of Animal Crossing as we know it, the original game. There's the N64 version, Dobutsu no Mori. There's Dobutsu no Mori Plus, which is the Japanese port of the N64 game with some added stuff. And some of the stuff
Hmm.
they added is quite interesting because a lot of the iconic things that we think about for Animal Crossing actually started with Plus, not the N64 game. For example, like Blathers and Tortimer are not in the N64 game. So it's
Interesting.
kind of hard to imagine, like, oh, how can you not have Blathers in an Animal Crossing game? But
Yeah.
they did. And um, and so then when it came to America in 2002, it was called Animal Crossing. So it's not just a port of the GameCube game because they added a lot of stuff to it since like the holidays are different between Japan and America. So
Hmm.
the holidays are a bit unique for each version. For example, the Japanese version does not have Harvest Day or Thanksgiving, and
Mm.
that American version of the GameCube Animal Crossing does not have like Setsubun, which is like I think it translates to like bean throwing festival, and it doesn't have Girls' Day and Boys' Day as well. So there are
Okay.
some items in the Japanese GameCube version that are not in the American version, and also vice versa. So since it was
That's really interesting,
mm,
honestly.
and since it was a big hit in Japan, or sorry, a big hit in America, Animal Crossing, then when it came to uh, Japan saw that and thought, well, let's just take the American version since that version is so good, port it or translate it into Japanese, and then even add more stuff to it. And that version is called Dobutsu no Mori E Plus, the E being the e-reader. So the
Oh, the
Japanese
e-reader.
version of E Plus could use the e-reader, and it actually was bundled with the e-reader when it came out, and it came
The
with a few. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the e-reader is probably one of the biggest rabbit holes Nintendo ever created. There
Yeah.
is so much weird stuff that that thing could do.
Yes, the e-reader is definitely like really interesting. This is also kind of a side tangent, but I recently played the e-reader levels for Super Mario Brothers 3 on the GBA, and
Hmm.
those were really amazing. I was surprised at how good they were,
Oh
and
yeah.
a lot of them were Japan only. E-reader was way more popular in Japan than in the West for
Mm.
whatever reason. But Dobutsu no Mori E Plus, like the original version, it came with the e-reader and it came with e-reader cards, and you could scan in some like items and maybe villagers as well. Like they could join your town if you scan them in. Very similar to the amiibo and the Animal Crossing card amiibos that came out like recently. E-reader is basically like the proto amiibo, which is kind of funny to think about. So yeah, there are four versions of Animal Crossing, um, which is like quite ironic. That would never happen again today.
Oh yeah.
So the original version is really interesting from like a history perspective.
I always find it really cool too when like they finally give kind of similar to Pokemon where like the version we got was actually like Japan's like third version or something like that.
Yeah,
But
it was like our red and blue is based off their blue, which is like their third version of red and green. So it's like
yeah,
yeah, very weird
what's funny to me though is like they liked our version so much that they just re-released it over there as another version for them,
because
which I think
it was a big hit in Japan, and so well, there's another Animal Crossing that has slightly more content, so we can maybe resell it if we just translate it again.
it also I noticed came out on the Chinese IQ player of all things, which is
Hmm.
I always find that interesting because that thing is such another weird rabbit hole in gaming.
Yes. That has like some it has like, oh, you can play Animal Crossing like E plus, you can play Galaxy. It's just like all these weird games are shoved on that thing.
Yeah, that's funny. So believe it or not, me and Alex were PlayStation kids for most of our life growing up, and
Mhm.
we did not have access to any Nintendo consoles for most of our childhood. Like our first Nintendo console was a Wii.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
we actually did not experience the original Animal Crossing at the time of its release. So most of my knowledge of it is actually from like secondhand knowledge because I had a weirdly enough, despite like the PlayStation 2 being like the best-selling console of all time, the area that we lived in was a very like Nintendo heavy area and like everybody had a GameCube
Hmm.
and the few that didn't had Xboxes. So it was kind of an interesting thing where we were like the lonely like PlayStation family.
That's
And
pretty ironic.
it was too, especially well, here's the fun fact. They all had PS2s, but nobody had any games. It was just their family DVD player.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
But going on from there, it was funny because everybody I knew was playing Animal Crossing then, and
Hmm.
I'd always like hear the stories about it and how like people would be like. What fascinated me the most back then was how the game ran off a real time clock because
Hmm.
Hmm.
I still hadn't really grasped that like a game could like actually like you'd have to keep up with it and like if you ignored it for a long period of time, it would actually like be detrimental to your game
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. So I kind of saw that. Um, I'm gonna actually let you go, Mono, just because I'm assuming you actually did play this back in the day.
Yeah, I bought it pretty close to launch. And actually, what you mentioned before, I'm sorry to do all the history lesson, but the internal clock, that's unique to the GameCube because the
Hmm.
clock for the N64 version was actually stored in the cart. So I'm not sure if you could manipulate it or time travel because of this.
Hmm.
So when it moved to the GameCube, oh, they just thought, well, it's much more powerful. We can just use the GameCube clock, which is a lot more convenient.
Hmm.
But I did buy Animal Crossing when it originally came out because I was quite interested in the game, since in gaming magazines they were talking about Animal Crossing, the N64 version. And at this time, when you're in the late 90s or early 2000s, if a game comes out in Japan, there's no guarantee it's coming out in America, even if it's from
Yes.
Nintendo. So I was quite interested in Animal Crossing because, oh, it's Japan only, and it seems quite popular. And the concept of, oh, it's like you're living like a virtual life and just using like the real time clock was really fascinating to me, especially since, of course, I'm a huge Pokemon fan. And in Pokemon Gold and Silver, it also had a real time clock. Uh, so based in the cart, I believe. Yeah, it was in the cart, where, it turns night and day based on your night and day.
Hmm.
And I always had fond memories of like waking up early and going to like the market to buy some items that you could only buy in the morning, or catching Pokemon that only came out at night. So the concept of, oh, this is a real uh, time in the game, and also it reflects your real life, was really fascinating to me. And it got good reviews and it looked interesting. So I picked it up day one. Or not, well, I can't really remember if it's day one or not, but pretty close to launch. As soon as I had, $50, I bought it. And
Nice.
it did come with a interesting part about the original American release. I'm not quite sure if the game or the Japanese release was the same. Sorry, I'm not quite sure if the Japanese release was the same, but the original American Animal Crossing for GameCube came with a memory card inside the
Yes.
package, because you can't save it on a normal memory card because it takes up the entire block, or it takes up all the memory cards. So you needed to have its own special memory card to play it.
It's actually a fun fact with that. So many times I'll get like I bought a few like used memory cards for the GameCube, and some of them are the old Animal Crossing ones, and like
Mm.
you boot it up, and it's like the entire thing's just filled with somebody's entire Animal Crossing history, and I'm always kind of like, I feel like a jerk for being about to delete this, but I
Yeah.
bought a memory card to use it as a memory card, so they just and it's always funny too because like if you try to delete the save file on like an Animal Crossing, the game kind of will guilt trip you a little.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
It'll be like, are you sure you want to like delete all these memories that you've accumulated? But of course, for me at that point, it wasn't my memories, so I was like, yeah, I don't care. I was like, it's fine.
Like screw their memories.
Yep. And the memory card, it came with like a sticker where you could write your name. So I guess they peeled it off if they were reselling it, or maybe they
Yeah.
just didn't like the sticker.
So the one I had actually had the remains of it. Like it had been attempted to be peeled off,
Oh,
but it was like sort of still there, and I was like,
Oh
oh,
no.
I'm like, I see.
yeah. But yeah, the first Animal Crossing, I was a huge fan of it. I thought it was an excellent game, and it really kind of nailed what I was looking for in this game. And I think we'll probably get into it later. But like the appeal of Animal Crossing is a bit hard to describe because it's not really
Yeah,
gameplay focused. It's mostly focused on the atmosphere and the aesthetic and the customization aspects, and that really anybody can play it, which is a huge strength to it. You don't
mm,
have to be a game expert. You don't have to have Twitch reflexes to enjoy Animal Crossing. And even if you don't engage with every aspect of the game, you can still have a great time. Like if you're not interested in catching bugs, you don't have to, and you can just do, the dozens of other things. And I think another huge appeal of Animal Crossing, especially that first game, is kind of like the rustic, like country aesthetic.
mm.
In Japanese, like the word like inaka is often thrown around, and inaka, it literally just translates to the countryside, like the
Oh,
rural
okay.
area of Japan. But it's often used as like a word to describe like the feeling of like the countryside, like this, the slow life, especially nostalgia, because a lot of people who maybe grew up in Tokyo, maybe their grandparents live in the Inaka, in the countryside. So they would probably visit their grandparents, during holidays like Golden Week, which is a long holiday in spring or summer vacation. And so you
Mhm.
Mm.
go to like their home, and they probably lived in like this, very traditional Japanese style home, not like an apartment in Tokyo. And you would catch bugs or walk around and enjoy nature. And a lot of stuff is probably low tech in that region of Japan. So I
Mm.
think that that atmosphere of Animal Crossing really correlates with that atmosphere a lot of people experienced when they were kids. Because Animal Crossing, maybe not now, but the original game is very low tech. Like you are going to the post office to mail letters,
Mm.
and you have to wait for the train to come by, and it feels like you're living in the countryside, not in a modern city, which I think is
Mm.
a huge appeal of Animal Crossing, both for Japanese players but also American players as well.
Oh no, definitely. To me, like, so because we didn't have a GameCube, like I would only ever experience the game basically whenever I saw friends playing it.
Mm,
And to me, like, I love The Sims. Like, The Sims is like one of my favorite series of all time, and I love the whole life simulation style of gameplay. So I would always see this, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is kind of like The Sims, only you're playing as a bunch of like animals on this like little town."
mm.
And I always remember being like really desperate to play it, but I just never could because we didn't have a GameCube.
Mm.
And I remember, Alex, I don't remember, like, how did you first get into Animal Crossing? Because we didn't really we weren't the closest back then, so we didn't really know each other's opinions on stuff.
Well, my my first introduction to Animal Crossing was Wild World, because we didn't have a N64 or a GameCube. We didn't have those, so but we did have Nintendo DSs. And Wild World was my first interaction with it. I think it was actually one of the first couple games that I got on my DS. But instead of playing Animal Crossing, I chose to play Nintendogs as my first game.
That's
No,
not a bad choice.
No, no, it wasn't. But then eventually, like I got sick of Nintendogs, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up this game. It looks cute, which I'm pretty certain is why my mom bought it for me. And I started playing it, and I think at first I was thrown off with the real time clock because I think this was also one of my first experiences with like actually I guess like a game that like you actually have to keep up with, and it wasn't just
Mm,
something that you'd play for a little bit and give up. Because I at this point most of my game experience was either playing as a co-op game with Bill, like Lego Star Wars, which traumatizes Bill, um, or um, or just a lot of licensed games, like because that's just like a lot of Barbie games and stuff like that. So I'd say this was like one of my first like games that it wasn't licensed, it wasn't like and it was my game. It wasn't Bill's game, it was my game. So I have a lot of special attachments to Wild World. Um I just remember falling in love with it so fast. Like just the aspect of like falling in love with my little villagers and getting to know them and getting attached to them, and then they'd move out and I would cry. Um because I'd be so upset that they moved out and I didn't have time to save, bring them, make sure they wouldn't leave. Um, and then I remember like I still remember vividly the first time I forgot to save, and Mr. Rossetti really scared me, and I didn't like it. But I
he
have a
was
lot.
a very effective way of getting you to remember to save.
Oh my
yeah.
god, yeah. I think in Wild World I only ran into him maybe like 2 or 3 times, and most of the times it was because it was out of my control, like, my DS died on me, like, it was never
or I
on
turned it off
purpose,
on you
or
that one time.
yeah, or Bill did stuff like that, because he was such a kind brother to me,
It's
um,
almost like we were siblings.
I wonder, and I remember too, like, one of my one of my memories about this game was, like, knowing that you could play with other people, but not having any friends to play it with, because Bill didn't have it, and at school, I didn't, like no one really talked about it in like my friend circles at school, so I was like, I have no one to play Animal Crossing with.
So I
Now
guess like
my memories sound a little depressing now.
So I guess I should clarify. I had said earlier that like I was really interested in the original Animal Crossing.
Mhm.
By the time Wild World came out, this is when I had kind of hit my RPG phase where like all I was playing was like Final Fantasies, like Tales of not Persona yet. I hadn't got too young for Persona, but Mario and Luigi, like sort of games like that. And my interest had shifted away from social simulation games to like now I was just playing turn-based RPGs everywhere.
Mm.
So that's why I probably did not get Wild World at the time. And I think I had kind of I would see her playing it all the time and be like, oh, they put that on DS. That's cool. And then I'd kind of just move on.
Yeah, Wild World was really kind of the turning point for the franchise because a lot of people realized, oh, hey, this is a great portable type of game
Mm.
that
Mm,
you can pick up and play anywhere. So since then, a lot of people have said, well, I'm only going to play Animal Crossing on portable hardware, which I really can't think of another series where it kind of benefited heavily from the portable form factor. Maybe Pokemon, but that started off as a portable game, anyways. But
Yeah.
to go from the console to portable, and then
I'd
everyone agrees, oh, it's better on portable, is
a
pretty
little
unique.
out there, but I
Yeah.
actually think Persona is better portable.
Oh, really?
Well, because Persona 4 Golden's like my favorite game of all time, and
Hmm.
that was the version that I fell in love with was the Vita version, and there's just something about that game that like I can like play it like while I multitask, like I'll put a show on in the background or I'll
Hmm.
be doing something else, and like when Persona 5 and 3 got ported to the Switch, I was like, oh hell yeah, I can finally play these like I played Persona 4. I don't know if that's just me or not, but I've always kind of had that. To me, RPGs just feel better on handhelds for some reason.
Maybe also because Persona has like the schedule system and like that
That's
progression
true.
of days, similar to Animal Crossing. So maybe there is some sort of weird connection. Maybe just games that have
Well,
like real days are better on portable.
I don't know. I will agree, like, cause there's some points where I'm playing One Piece Odyssey and I'm like, damn, I wish I could play this on my Switch and just like
Hmm.
be able to like kind of have it with me, and then like kind of put it down and pick it up. But I definitely agree. I think this game definitely tends to the audience of. I think the portable aspect really works with this game because it is a game that like you have to pick it up at weird hours of the day, or maybe you just check in once a day. And I think it just really works for this series.
Did either of you ever get up at like the
Yes.
stupid time in the middle of the night
Yes.
to catch that one damn fish?
Yes, yes, Bill. Yes, I did.
In the original game, well, I think he appears in other games, but in the original game, there was a ghost, and he only appeared at like 2 a.m. or whatever, like on
Um,
Saturday. And I remember I stayed up to see him, but then I fell asleep playing the game, and then I woke up like after the ghost had already left. So it was really.
no.
I'm glad they make it a bit more manageable now. There's nothing you have to do at 2 a.m. anymore.
Yeah.
Aw.
Oh man. I always just remember like the funniest thing about Wild World to me was Alex was like absolutely glued to this game for probably like a good 2 years.
Mm.
Honestly, I was pretty glued to this game until New Leaf came out.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth. Like I would play this game all the time. Like it would just be I'd be playing other games, but this was like my always my go back to game where I would make sure to always play and check in on my town.
Oh yeah. Although before New Leaf there was another entry in the series, but I think we're going to take a quick break before we get to that and we'll be right back.
Woo!
And we're back.
Hi.
S- So, following was Wild World like that was like a huge success, wasn't it? Like cuz the
Oh
DS,
yeah.
I mean, the
Oh
DS
yeah.
itself is the second best-selling video game system of all time. So I can only imagine that the DS version of Animal Crossing was like probably is it like the biggest entry in the series at this point? I've never actually looked that up.
At this point, there was really only the GameCube game and then the DS game. And the DS game did sell more than the GameCube version,
Okay.
but
Mm,
it was topped several times over later on.
Okay. That's what I wanted to
mm,
know. Um, so this is the next game in the series is arguably I think the least talked about one in a lot of people's opinion, and that was Animal Crossing City Folk for the Wii.
Mm.
mhm.
So oddly enough, we had a Wii growing up, but we did not own this game.
Yeah, I don't know why, because I thought like like our mom would have got it for us like as or for me as like a gift, but it just never happened. I guess I don't
So you know
know.
what I think happened? You were still glued to Wild World at this point,
Yeah,
and you had basically given up on the Wii. Like I basically just the Wii became my console at that point,
yeah, and the DS was mine.
and I don't think I really cared enough about Animal Crossing at the time to like really want it. So I think it just kind of completely went over the radar.
Mm.
But at the same time, Mona, you said you didn't play this one either, right?
Yeah, actually, it is kind of weird that I would skip an Animal Crossing game, even though I loved the GameCube and the DS
Mm.
version. But I think there was a lot of miscommunication around the game because some people were saying, "Oh, it's like a console port of Wild World," and
Yeah,
then they added like some extra stuff, which I don't think is exactly true. That it's a port of the DS game, but a
yeah, I
lot of
don't
people
think it is.
But a lot of people do say, "Oh, actually, like so many things from the DS game are just in this game, and the new
Hmm.
additions are quite minimal." I believe the biggest new addition is like the shopping street, where
Mm.
you can go outside of your little town, and there's like a segmented area that has like the shop and the salon and some
Yep.
other things as well. And it has a bit more online functionality compared
Hmm.
to the DS version, but I think a lot of the content is pretty similar to the DS game, and even
Mm.
aesthetically, it kind of just looks like the DS game.
No, it,
Uh,
it does, like with a little better graphics. I do
mm,
know one thing too about this game that was a negative thing I remember hearing a lot about was that the paths that you would walk, it would like deteriorate your grass over time. So
yes.
if you played it a lot, like you would have like no grass or something. I remember that being a very common complaint and that when New Leaf was coming out, people were like, they better not keep this feature.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
did actually end up getting Alex this game because I found it at a like, GameStop after the Wii was discontinued for like $5, and I was like, "Oh, an Animal Crossing. Alex will enjoy this."
Yes.
Did you ever end up playing it, or did you just
I
kind of?
have. I did play it a couple times at my first apartment. And I think I just ended up going more toward New Leaf was very much out at that point,
Gotcha.
and I think I just was more playing to that because I think it's kind of hard. It's hard. I feel like with the series going backwards
Yeah.
because you're very much like, oh, but I could do this, and I could do all this, and this, and this, and I can't do that in this one. And I have this village and I have my house and I love my neighbors. So I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm abandoning all of you. And that's the only thing I will say about the series. I feel like the going back and replaying the old ones, it's hard.
Mm.
It's
Gotcha.
hard to go back.
You were gonna say something, Mono?
Yeah, and like about the City Folk, once you have it portable, it's hard to go back to the TV only type of
That's
Yeah.
gameplay.
that's
Like,
very
oh,
true.
why should I turn on my TV? I can just flip open my DS and play it here. So I
Mm,
think that is proving like the point that Animal Crossing is way better suited towards handheld gameplay
mm,
because it did sell quite less, even though it sold like millions of copies. The Wii version sold quite less than the DS version. I believe I'm looking at it now. The DS version sold about 11 million copies, and the
Okay.
Wii
mm.
version sold about 3 million copies.
Oh,
So
yeah.
3 million, not nothing to scoff at, but that's a
No,
big
yeah.
dip from 11 million. So I think Nintendo kind of realized, oh, let's keep it on portable for a while.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider like the Wii wasn't a failure by any means either. Like that was probably one of
No,
No,
no.
the Wii was definitely a successful system, and a lot of people owned it. So it is interesting actually looking at that now.
Mm.
But I guess moving on. So New Leaf. I remember the hype for New Leaf more than I actually remember the game in a lot of ways.
Well, I think because especially you lived through me, because I was one of the people who was hyped. Um, Especially I think too, because we kind of got I'll just mention it briefly, but the Animal Crossing like Amiibo Fest. I don't know if that came out before.
It was after.
It was after. It was after. But I think too they had showed like something, some sort of like I don't know. I just remember there being like a ton of hype for it, and I was super excited. And I think too a lot of that was there was a lot of people who were still playing just Wild World because they liked
That's what
playing
I
it
think
on
it
the
is actually.
handheld. So it felt like a big period of time between this and New Leaf
Well,
between Wild
it
World and New
kind of
Leaf.
would be because
Yeah.
New Leaf came out in like '05, yeah, 2005,
Mm.
and New Leaf was 2012. So that was a big gap, especially for a lot of people that I'm assuming did not play City Folk.
Mm.
So yeah, that
Yeah,
actually would make sense.
yeah. I also feel the same way because I also, skipped City Folk along with I guess 8 million other people,
Yeah.
and
Me
and
too.
so it felt like okay, it's time for like a new Animal Crossing. 3DS is picking up some steam at this time, and
Mhm.
another thing is that New Leaf came out in Japan almost a year before the US version. So
Hmm.
Mm.
again, it's like a big gap between the release dates. But it started to build up a lot of momentum in Japan, and it was selling well, and there was a lot of positive word of mouth from people who have played the Japanese version. So
Mm.
people who were paying attention to that were really excited for the English translation because it seemed like okay, this is a return to form for Animal Crossing, and it seems to capture the old atmosphere, but also have a lot of new stuff and
Mm.
interesting gameplay as well. So I really remember the hype as well. It's like, oh, finally, a new Animal Crossing is coming out.
Yeah, which is funny because like Alex's hype for this game was so massive that
Mhm.
it actually got me curious enough to try the game as well. So when Alex actually picked it up, I had picked it up around the same time because I figured, okay, we can actually play together because the online features will be a thing.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, like I do with pretty much every Animal Crossing game by this point, I pick it up, I play for like 3 days, and I'm like, this is fun. I'm enjoying it. And then a little game called Fire Emblem Awakening came out, like
Oh yes.
a little bit shortly after. And that became the main game that was in my 3DS for the next like year.
Yep. And
So
this was the one that was in mine for a year. So
yeah. So I always say like hindsight is 2020. If I had downloaded New Leaf from the store rather than buying a physical cartridge, I probably would have played it more because then
Mhm.
I could have just popped it on, done a day, done some stuff around the town, and then shifted over to Awakening.
Mm.
But that's actually a thing I'm going to save till we get to New Horizons later on.
Yes.
I'll let you guys go now because you definitely have more to say about this game than I do.
I mean, I loved this game. I loved being the mayor of the town. I had
Mm.
so much fun being the mayor and picking like events and stuff. Like my favorite part of this game was when like a new building would come in and you'd have like the ribbon cutting ceremony every single time. That was one of my favorite parts because it was just so cute. And I would always screen cap every time I had an event to try and get them while like they were doing like the popper
Ah yes.
with the little popper, and I'd get
Th-
it every
th-
time. So I
Ooh.
just have a bunch of them. Some of them were hilarious though, because you'd get them like when they were all making like shock faces. So that adored this game, and I still adore it to this day.
Yeah, I'm also a huge fan of New Leaf. This was my favorite at the time uh,
Mhm.
because, like you said before, being the mayor, it doesn't seem like an amazing concept on paper, but it
Mm.
totally works in this game.
Mm.
And one of the greatest things is the ordinances, which you can
Yes.
affect your overall town. Like if you don't know what these are, like you can pass laws to change your town in some way. For
Yeah.
example, you can make it to where, well, actually, flowers like don't wilt as fast because of
Yep.
like the
The
beauty
beautiful
ordinance.
town.
Yes,
I always had the beautiful town.
and one I love is like the night owl, where the shops
Mm.
are open later than normal.
Mm.
They open later, but at this time, I'm coming home from work, and by the time I have time to play, it might be like 9 o'clock at night. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
well, in a normal Animal Crossing game, it would be closed all the shops, but with the night owl ordinance, you can push it back to maybe like 10 or 11. And so,
Mm.
okay, you can do some night shopping and still enjoy the entire Animal Crossing experience, even though you're playing it much later than a lot of other people.
Mm.
And also, yeah, Isabelle is maybe one of the greatest video game characters ever. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm glad they added her. And that was something before we get into New Horizons. I was kind of wondering, like, oh, are they going to like make a new Isabelle? Like, how can you top Isabelle? And
And
then
they
Nintendo,
can't.
yeah, Nintendo realized, oh, we can't, so we're just going to use Isabelle again.
Well, she's so cute, and as many people point out, she is a belle. She's a bunch of
Yes,
bells. Like it's just so cute. I loved having Isabel as like your assistant, your like secretary.
I
I
always
just
found
I
it
loved all
amusing
the.
too because she was like the polar opposite of everybody's favorite character, Tom Nook.
Oh yeah,
yes.
breaking kneecaps.
Uh,
Because he wants your money. Tom Nook is kind of scary when you think about it. He's like very aggressively wants you to keep building your house, and you're like, maybe I will like my house just how it is. And he's
maybe
like,
I want to
nope.
stay in the tent.
Yeah, there's the great debate of like, oh, is Tom Nook good or is he evil? Because yeah, he wants your money, but he doesn't give you like interest, and there's no deadline. So
Mm.
people are saying, oh, actually, if he was in the real world, he'd be quite generous.
Yep.
But
In the
it is kind
game,
of
he'll find you.
yes,
He knows where you live.
My favorite thing, like this is a little off topic, but years ago IGN did a top like 100 villains list, and I always remember Tom Nook was on the list, and I remember reading it. I'm like, Tom Nook, like what? But then I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I guess.
If there was a villain in Animal Crossing, I guess it would be Tom Nook.
Well, depending on the player, sometimes it is the player is the villain.
Oh, true.
And
Depending
one
on
thing
who.
we haven't mentioned about Animal Crossing, about another reason why it's great, is like the localization. The writing is really
Mm,
excellent. Like we're talking about Tom Nook, who is Tanukichi in Japanese,
mhm.
and this is because he's a tanuki, which is a Japanese animal. So Tom Nook comes from
Yeah.
tanuki,
Mhm.
and that's just like indicative of how great the writing is, especially in English. It feels like so everyone has their own unique personalities, and
Mm,
the writing is so flavorful and so funny, and there's so many clever puns, and it's just really fun to read
mm.
all the dialogue. So many games you're
Yeah.
just like mashing A, skipping the dialogue, but here you really want to read everything everyone's saying.
Oh yeah. I forgot to mention that, like especially when like you would catch fish or bugs, and every time there's always some sort of like pun associated with it.
Yep.
Yes.
That was always one of the best parts. It didn't matter how many sea bass I caught. I appreciated that pun every single time.
I think the sea bass pun is definitely the thing they're sitting down and thinking the most about, because players are
Yes.
going to see it like hundreds of times. So we got
Oh
to
Mhm.
make
yeah.
a really good one.
Then the black bass one, which is like the most metal of fish or whatever.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
enjoy that one as well. Oh man.
This
So
one, I know this game also brought out like where you could go swimming. I believe this is the first one where you could
Yes.
swim, which was a really fun aspect, and like it definitely built to the game. And it also had the island, which I
Yes.
know not everyone loved the island, but I love the island because I made so much money on the island.
Yes. I love the island as well because yeah, you can catch the bugs, and it was a
The
good like
sharks and
change of pace and atmosphere from
hmm,
your like kind of like foresty town. This is like really when people decided, oh, the next Animal Crossing should be on an island, because
mhm.
the
hmm,
island aesthetic, it was really nice in New Leaf. And yeah, you could dive and catch like urchin and things like that.
hmm,
And you could also encounter other players on the island as well,
Mm.
like randomly, which is
hmm.
really interesting and fun.
So
So New Leaf had
oh,
so many like excellent additions that really like gave new life to the series.
oh
Hmm.
yeah. I remember too, because this game, like the life cycle of New Leaf went on for like ever.
Mm,
Like, and it's interesting to me because like when it came out on the 3DS, the Wii U was already out by this point.
mm.
So I always remember a lot of people were already wondering like, oh, so is there going to be a Wii U game next? And at that point, we didn't really know that the Wii U was not going to be the runaway success that a lot of people thought it was going to be.
Right.
And I always remember the first thing that they released for it was this game called Animal Crossing Plaza,
Mm,
which was
Mm,
mostly just a little, it was just kind of a little social, like fun thing that really wasn't much of anything. To me, I think it was just them showing off all the HD models for the first time.
yeah.
yes. I'm, al-
And, oh, what were
oh,
you
sorry.
going to say?
I'm
Oh,
also
no.
kind of thinking, was there ever any idea or any plan to put Animal Crossing on the Wii U? Because they just released New Leaf in 2012, so a bit
Mm,
before the New Leaf in Japan at least, and then it was 2013 in America for the Animal Crossing release. So, you know, they realized, sooner than later that Wii U is not going to be a huge hit.
mm,
Mm,
So I kind of wondered if, like, oh, let's just kind of see if we can make these HD models of the villagers. And okay, maybe at that time they decided, let's pull the plug on like a Wii U Animal Crossing, but let's
mm.
use these high def models in some way. So let's do like the Animal Crossing Plaza and the spin-offs as well. But
yeah.
they were smart not to put an Animal Crossing game on Wii U, because
Mm.
Well,
they should put that time elsewhere.
a main series Animal Crossing game that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is.
um, But yeah, so actually looking at it though, the gap in between New Leaf and New Horizons, I didn't realize was actually as big as it was
Mm.
It
initially.
it feels a bit less because there is the welcome amiibo, like
Yes.
not DLC. I guess it is DLC, but it was a free update
Yeah.
That's
for
true.
New Leaf, which they added quite a lot of features to. They've added quite a lot of features to welcome amiibo. Like
Mm.
they added like the RV park. Um,
Yeah.
and did you have any experience with the RV park, Alex? Did you often go there?
I played it a little bit. I definitely didn't get as into the RV park. I think at this point too, I had started playing Happy Home Designer.
Ah,
So
yes.
when Welcome Amiibo came in, I was really excited about the Happy Home Designer aspects because I think that was part of it is that you with Welcome Amiibo you could also have the home design aspects as the other Happy Home Designer. I think that is. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that also was part of it. So I was hyped about that because one of my favorite parts of the game was decorating my house.
Hmm.
I had so much fun doing that. And I forgot to mention it, but I think too one of the things about New Leaf as well that was interesting was like the Dream Suite
Yes, yes. Where you
and
could
where you
go
could
to
go.
other people's house or homes.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring up like the fact that like some of the people like would take their Animal Crossing towns and build them into stories. Like I don't know if you ever saw one. It was like this horror story one
Yes.
that
I
got
think I read an article
super
about it.
pop. Yeah, that got super popular. But there were so many people that like took their villages and really made them into these whole like almost storybooks. So you went and visited and you kind of had to follow the story through the town. And that was one of the really cool things about New Leaf too, just having those options where it was also nice that like if you were like me and you didn't have a lot of friends who played it, you could still kind of experience those social interactions without having a lot of friends to play it with. Which
Yeah.
sounds so sad, but I mean, I'm sure I wasn't the only one who was like, "Yeah, I play video games, but I don't really tell anyone about it." So, but I still want to feel feel part of the group.
Yes. And that idea is kind of like the genesis of Animal Crossing because the director of the original game, Katsuya Eguchi, he he wanted to make a game where because he comes home, late at night and like his kids are playing, in the day. So he kind of wanted to make a game where okay, it's still happening even though other people are not playing and even though you could play at different times, you can still contribute to another person's game.
Mm,
Mm,
So like if you're living together in the Animal Crossing like a city or world,
mm,
well, you can play at totally different times and still, contribute to your town in some way or change something. So,
mhm.
yeah, that
mm.
idea that Alex talked about is like that's kind of why Animal Crossing was made.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
And some other New Leaf things I want to talk about for Welcome Amiibo, especially. One awesome addition they had are the Nintendo villagers that
Mm,
are
Mm,
new villagers based on Nintendo characters that you could get by
mhm.
scanning Amiibo.
yes.
Yeah.
And so they had one for like they had a lot of Zelda ones. Like you could have
Mhm.
like Epona, the horse from Link's horse in Zelda, like could be a villager, and also
Nice.
Medley from Wind Waker, and even Ganon in his pig form could be a villager, which is really funny.
Yeah.
Uh, and they did like some Splatoon ones as well. Like Callie and Marie are squirrels,
Mhm.
and they also had like these like Sanrio, the company who makes Hello
Yeah,
Kitty.
Hello Kitty. Yep.
Yes, so that's like a really kind of weird collaboration. And
But it
outside of
worked
those,
so well.
yes, it was like totally perfect because like the aesthetic is like perfect for Animal Crossing.
Mm.
And I'm looking at it now. They added like dozens of other like old villagers. So even though it was just like this free update, it really felt like a huge expansion to New Leaf.
Oh
And
yeah.
this is what they were working on instead of making a Wii U like Animal Crossing game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like, "We know this is not going to work out. So we're going to focus on this and then we're going to focus on the next console, the
Yes.
next one."
What I still remember though when Happy Home Designer came out, Alex like went on like a month long binge of playing nothing but that.
Yes, I played that game a lot. I
And I remember like the reviews for it was like everyone was like, "It's just designing houses. This is dumb." And Alex was like, "This is the greatest thing
this
ever."
this is my favorite part of games. I love doing this.
Yeah,
Oh,
the spin-offs of Animal Crossing, I think we'll maybe get into it later, or we can get into it now. They are a bit unorthodox because how do you take this life sim and make a spin-off of it?
Hmm.
Mm,
and they did Happy Home Designer, which, like
Yeah.
you said, like it wasn't really well received in terms of reviews because
Mhm.
you're really just doing like one aspect of Animal Crossing, not everything. But some people
mm,
like Alex said, like some people are totally plugged into that and they really loved it. And
Yeah.
I skipped that game on 3DS, but when the DLC came for Switch, that's when I realized, oh, okay, I can see the appeal of just
Mm.
decorating your house once they
mm.
give
Yes.
you a bunch of items. And then there was the Amiibo Festival for Wii U, which
Yeah.
was like it,
Yes.
it's
A party
not
game, but
yes
there's no real games.
yes it's not like Mario Party where there's mini games. It's just
Yeah.
the board game aspect of it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I guess it's cool to see them in HD.
Mm.
And it did come with an Amiibo, and I don't know what else to say about it.
There really isn't. That's the funny part
No,
about
that
it.
yeah, that's really the best way to describe it because it's like if you're a fan of Animal Crossing and you like to look at pretty pictures and read, great.
To me,
But
it's
that's
kind of
really it.
the best way to sum up that game is kind of like that Fairly Odd Parents joke where it's like, when do we get to the ride? It's like, this is the
The
ride.
ride.
It's- yeah. I remember though the controversy behind that one. Like everyone was like, what is this? Like this is because this is like probably Nintendo at their lowest point. I think they had ever been in it by that
Hmm.
point. Like because
Yeah.
everyone was turning on Nintendo. Like there was the people that actually thought Nintendo was going to go third party and be like Sega, and I was like, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, then the
Okay.
Switch comes out, and immediately everyone's like, all right, next Animal Crossing.
Crossing.
And this to me, this is like one of the most. It's unfortunate because of the timing, but at the same time, like the timing probably couldn't have been any more perfect. I hate saying that because of what I'm alluding to, but
Yes, but it is
But it's
true.
true. It's so true. I mean, I think this game is very popular because of what was happening during the time.
yeah,
It's very interesting. It's kind of going to be cool to look. I mean, not cool, but it will be interesting to kind of look back in like years in the future, like kind of what we do with like some of our past games and like look at the history behind this because really this game got popular because of the pandemic. Like it really did when you think about it. Like
yeah.
it's crazy.
So
Yeah, it's a
I remember.
legit
Oh,
cultural
sorry.
fun. Sorry, it's a legit cultural phenomenon, not just in
Yeah,
Japan, but all over the world. People
everywhere.
who didn't play games suddenly picked up Animal Crossing.
Mm.
Yeah. And I mean this was making it so like the Switch was sold out in stores. Like you
Hmm.
couldn't buy a Switch anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh, I actually that's I want to give my little story on how I got New Horizons. So I remember the day it came out. So this was right before everything shut down and like the world was still in that kind of weird limbo phase before we actually like hit the real pandemic. Um, I remember going to the Walmart up the street from where I worked at the time, and I walked in and the entire shelf was just annihilated. Like everyone had grabbed every copy, and I was like, "Oh damn!" So then I went over to the Best Buy, and same thing. Just actually no, the Best Buy was closed. Never mind. The Best Buy was closed, so I couldn't go there. Um, GameStop didn't have it. It was completely the only ones they had were pre-orders, and I couldn't get that. So this is actually another somewhat blessing in disguise. Um, a lot of people know I'm like a hardcore game collector and like I'm a strict like physical only collector. Like I only collect physical games.
Yep.
Just it's just my preference to that sort of stuff. But I ended up just kind of bunkering down was kind of like, all right, I'll just get it digitally because I mean I'll get it later when it's back in stock.
Mhm.
Which fun fact, it was not back in stock for a long time.
Yeah.
So I downloaded and I was like, all right, I guess I'll play it now. And I remember I was like, I sent Alex a picture of this download screen and she was like, because you didn't have it at the time. You were like, what? No fair. I want it now.
Yeah, because
And
I was the Animal Crossing fan, not you.
I remember finally it booted up because I had actually got it specifically because I was like, all right, I'm gonna actually get into it this time because I actually want to like understand what Alex sees in this series.
Hmm.
And I started playing it and literally I just could not stop, like put it
Hmm.
down. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I bought it digitally rather than physically,
Yeah.
because I didn't have the hassle of having to always put the game in to play. It was always right there on the screen, and if I wanted to play it, I could just hit the button and jump in, play for a little bit. jump out, play something else, and not have to ever worry about that. And I think it made it so much easier to every day just being able to play for like an hour or so
Mm.
and then go from there. And I think that's what finally got me over the hump that was like me not being able to like get into an Animal Crossing game.
Yeah, I think other people were also feeling the same way as well. And it did have like a huge digital ratio between physical and
Mm.
digital sales,
Mm.
especially early on, because yeah, people really couldn't just go out and buy it because they were like sheltered in their homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like a weird thing. Of course, this game would still be popular even without Corona, but
Oh
you do
yeah.
kind of have to wonder, like, what's like the difference in sales between
Oh yeah.
Corona and not Corona? How many millions is it?
Oh
Because
my
I
god.
had
Yeah.
like I had coworkers that were like, so I work in a machine shop, and like I had coworkers who were like the most non-video game people I know, and they were playing Animal Crossing New
Yes.
Horizons,
Yeah.
and I was like, what world are we living in right now? I
And
was
I've never seen a game take over social media like Animal
mm,
Crossing New Horizons did. Not
Oh
even
yeah.
like Smash. I follow a ton of like Nintendo people on Twitter. So of course, when there's a big Nintendo game that comes out, everyone's talking about it. But
Mm.
the volume of like Animal Crossing tweets and memes and jokes and videos that were being shared at this time was like astronomical. No other game even comes close.
Oh yeah.
it was fun playing it from the beginning too, because I got to experience like all of that stuff with like everybody. Like I
Mhm.
always
Mm.
remember like the iron like crawl at the beginning where it's like you need all this iron to move on, and
Yeah.
it's like I can't
Ah,
find any
yes.
iron. And I remember everyone online was like, could you spare some iron, please? Like
Yes.
we
Iron.
can't move on. I remember the funny stuff like that, like because that was like the first real roadblock in that game of like,
Mm.
oh crap, I can't go any farther till I find this iron. But iron only you can only get it from these rocks. What?
Mhm.
I can't move on. Help.
Mm.
Yeah, that first week is kind of brutal because it is sort of
Oh
like a
yeah.
long tutorial, and it's
Mm.
hard to imagine like, oh, there's a week-long tutorial in this game, but
Yeah.
there is. But once you're past that, you'll have a ton of resources.
Mm.
I,
But I know some people didn't like the slower start compared to some of the other Animal Crossing games,
Mm.
but
see,
I think it's a really smart way to get people into it.
yeah, that
Oh, I
exactly.
agree.
Like, I honestly I like that the setup of it because it was kind of like every day I'd play, I'm like, okay, I want to get a little more of this island. Because what's cool to me is I love the island setup because they restrict you initially to this one small portion of your island,
Mm,
Mm.
and you can't get any farther until you get like farther in the day and play more days, and eventually you'll be able to cross over the rivers, and then you get exposed to the rest of your island, and then you can later on you'll get a ladder so you can climb up the hills and stuff. And to me, I just thought that was a cool progression because you'd constantly be looking in the background being like, what is all that back there that I can
mm.
explore?
Mm.
Yeah, what are those flowers? I want those.
Yeah.
Like that tree looks interesting. You see a bug, you're like, I don't
Ooh.
have that bug, but I can't get it. Uh,
Yeah. I think you've kind of already mentioned it, but one of the biggest things about this game too that was new was the whole crafting system, which
Mm,
was something that you never could do before. And this that was all new. And I think that also kind of draw that words are hard. It brought in new people because I feel like on those days where you kind of were stuck, it kind of gave you more things to do because you were like, oh,
mm.
okay, I can do this, I can cut down this tree, I can craft this object. Sweet. Like it definitely, I feel like it increased the playtime of each day because you
mm.
had more stuff that you could definitely do throughout the day.
Definitely. And I was a bit worried, is this just going to be like a grinding for mats type of game?
Mm.
And it can be sometimes depending on like what you want to
Oh,
make,
yeah.
but I didn't feel like it's so insurmountable because there's so many other things you can be doing. So,
Mm,
and getting the mats is like kind of easy anyways. So,
mm,
okay, I'm just going to spend some time and like get like some wood and just
Mm.
relax, listen to the great music.
Oh
It didn't
yeah.
really feel like a hindrance compared to a lot of other games that
mm.
make you grind in order to proceed. Here, it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, is there something you want? You might need to grind for it, but you can take a break anytime and do whatever.
See, like for me, like this game was like one of my favorite, like just kind of relaxing, kind of like kill an hour games.
Mm,
Mm,
Because like I'd get home from work and I'd just kind of like I'd kick my feet back and just turn on the switch, and I'd have like say like a podcast going in the background. I'd be listening to that, and I'd just be walking around my island catching fish, cutting down trees,
mm,
making stuff. Like it honestly, like the crafting kind of gave it an RPG-ish kind of vibe, which I think
mm,
also helped appeal to me in a lot of ways. And like I just love like the absolute freedom that this game gives you compared to like previous games.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. And another huge addition is that you can put things outside,
Yeah.
which in New Leaf you could do I believe they were called like town projects or something,
Yeah.
where somebody would get an idea saying like, "Oh, I want to build like an oil well in the town,"
Yeah.
and then you could make it if you get enough money.
Yeah.
But it was quite hard to get because it was quite expensive
Yeah. And you were
to
kind of
do.
dependent on the people of your town coming up with ideas.
Yeah,
So you were limited basically until people started thinking, you were like, okay, I can't really do anything else to decorate.
Yeah.
Or it'd
yeah,
be like really like you'd have like your town would have this aesthetic and you'd be like, no, that item does not match the town's aesthetic. We are not putting that in my
right.
town.
And once it was there, it was really hard to move. Like I
Yeah.
made a in New Leaf, I made a fire hydrant next to my villager who is a dog, Butch.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, this is great. He's got a fire hydrant." But then he moved away. So then there was
How
just
dare
like a
he?
random a random fire hydrant in my town that I couldn't
Yeah.
get rid of. But here, like you can put down so many crazy items outside. And I think if I had to pick, what's the biggest addition or what's the biggest like new thing they added to New Horizons that makes it better than the past games, it's definitely decorating outside.
Oh yeah.
Which again, this was not something I thought was so exciting because I'm like, well, I care about my home, not stuff outside. But they give you so many awesome things, and people came up with so many amazing concepts and ideas that
Mm.
it is the like it is the perfect idea to
Mm.
implement in Animal Crossing.
It also introduced a really cool system, in my opinion, the Nook Miles system,
Yes.
which
Mm.
is basically it's another way of earning quote unquote currency, but it's also kind of like an achievement system as well. Like
Yeah.
in a sense, that gives you like something to do, like even when you're like out of stuff. Like say you're at a weird time of the day and you don't really have anything that major you can accomplish at the time. The Nook Mile system at least gives you a little thing you can do in the background while you're waiting or something.
Mm,
Like say cut down like 5 trees, like you'll get some points, or catch 5 fish, you'll get some points, or just all sorts of stuff like that that keeps the game like interesting even on like slower days.
Mm.
yeah, and it's kind of like dailies if you think
Mm,
about it. So yeah, this game it takes a lot of concepts from modern games like the crafting and like the
Mm.
dailies, but it makes it a lot more accessible and it gives it structure to the game because some people who maybe they didn't like the aimlessness of Animal Crossing in the past,
Mm.
it gives you okay, you jump into the game, here's what you can do. You can make ABC, you can do these achievement types of things. So it really suits both types of gamers, people who just want to relax and chill and be creative, and others who
Mhm.
want to work towards something.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love the
I
wackiness
think
of this
too
game
another
too
thing
at
is just
times. Like
how like
uh, uh,
fun this game
to me,
was
the
to play with
funniest part is like
others.
the very.
Um oh
What were you saying, Alex?
oh I you just went like super speed and I don't know a word you just said. It was like I have
Oh.
no idea what you just said.
My bad. I was gonna say like one of my favorite parts of this game is like the absolute like wackiness that can happen at times, like especially when you're playing like early game. Like there's points in the game where like when you're still trying to establish the island, like you have to collect all these different materials to sell to Tom Nook's nephews, I think they are,
Yes.
and you can actually trap them like in like a pattern. Like I trapped the one that was wandering the island multiple times. Like I just dig holes around him, get him stuck, and be like, "You stay
Good
there."
job. Good job, Bill.
Well,
I
I mean,
was
I needed entertainment.
well, I was gonna say this was the first game that I actually like got to play with someone else because Bill also had it, and I just remember like being like so excited that Bill could come to my town, and then just immediately regretting it because he just started trashing it. I was like, "Get out!"
Oh, you mean when I ran directly through your flower bed and
Yeah,
you were
you
like,
ruined all my flowers. I was
uh,
still mad about that. And then that's when we created the thumbnail for the episode.
I had the original. So
We're-
for podcast lore for everybody, the original thumbnail for the original Animal Crossing episode was it was a picture of my character lying down in a hammock, and Alex's was standing ominously behind it with the biggest like slasher smile and holding an axe. And we
because he
kind of
kept
went with
ruining
that.
my flowers.
Yeah. Well, you came to my island and were like, why is your island the trash island? And I was like, what do you mean? And you're like, there's trash everywhere.
Everywhere.
I'm like, that's
I'm
the
the
aesthetic.
trash man.
I liked putting random stuff everywhere. Like that's my enjoyment.
like trash. And I would just dig holes everywhere whenever I'd come over
Oh
as
yeah.
spite for my flower. Because you didn't have any flowers, you just had trash.
Yeah. I was gonna say though, another thing that I really love about this game is the so it's a recurring thing from all the Animal Crossing titles, but the museum in this game in particular is like one of
Yes.
my favorite aspects.
It's so pretty.
Yes.
It
It,
really is.
it feels like a real museum.
Mm.
It is a real museum. It's so fun.
Especially like because I have in my current game I have all the fossils. So like the
Same.
fossil room is like massive and like you can actually like explore it and look around and like everything is so like the HD graphics really shined when it came to stuff like the museum in particular.
Mm.
And like I love like exploring the butterfly room or the aquarium just because it's so like expansive and huge.
Mm.
And it's really cool seeing all the different fish and how they're like arranged differently. Like to me that was just such a cool like thing. Like I always loved finding new stuff just to add to the museum.
Mm.
Yeah, I really love the fossil room because it's laid out in a way of like a timeline, like it's
Mm.
going to like I don't know 10 billion BC, and then eventually you can see all the like the dinosaurs and then like the Ice Age animals, and then in the last room, it has like these kind of like an evolution chart of like all these different animals to the villager types,
Mm.
which raises a lot of questions about the world of
Yeah.
Animal Crossing, like what is happening. Uh,
Yeah.
but it is pretty funny to see like, okay, this rhino evolved into like your neighbor, your rhino neighbor.
Yeah.
But to me too, I thought it was really interesting that they like their decision to make all the fish like photorealistic for whatever reason.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you pick them up and like if you have like an ocean sunfish and it just completely covers your whole character because it's huge.
Oh, my favorite was the one that's like super long.
Oh.
I forget
Oh,
the
yes.
name of, but I would always I had two of them. I had one in the museum and then one that I just would keep on my character's person. I would love just walking around and then just like you could do the show off button and like
Yeah.
you'd pull out an item and show it off. So I just like walk around and be like, look at my giant fish. It was this big.
But
And
it,
then,
it can still fit in your pocket though, no matter how big.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, yes, yes.
that's my favorite part. You can just walk around with like all a giant like 5 sharks, but it's perfectly normal.
Also
Uh,
love that they kept adding more content to it because I know like one of my favorite things from New Leaf was the cafe, going to
Mm.
Brewster's. I loved going to Brewster's and hanging out with like the people in the town and get ordering a coffee. I do miss the coffee little mini game where you could work at the coffee shop and like you
Mm.
could make the orders. I do miss that, but I do love that they brought the coffee shop back. I wanted the coffee shop badly. It was my favorite part. I love the music, his little piano in there. It's wonderful. I was so happy they brought it back.
one of my favorite like music pieces was actually the music that plays during like the find the item mini game where like you get like they hit a present somewhere on the island
Yes.
and you got to go find it. I love that like calm little like acoustic guitar piece that just plays in the background. There's just something like really calming about okay, I'm running around my island trying to find this one hidden present, but like the music is so relaxing that I'm not stressed at all, and it's like such a like, everything about Animal Crossing New Leaf is like super. I mean, not New Leaf. New Horizons is like super calming to me.
Mm.
Yeah, and about the updates, what they added to the game is pretty interesting because there was some criticism at launch saying like, "Oh,
Mm.
this is not in the game." Well, I think it's
Mm,
hard to remember, but like Crazy Red, he was not in the game at launch,
Mm.
which I
mm,
thought was pretty crazy
No, I
because
agree.
he's such an iconic character.
Yeah.
But they did kind of like add every now and then. But then we got like the big update in 2021 that added the DLC and also added like Brewster, which was mentioned earlier. And one of the
Yes.
things that I wanted the most, of course, are the gyroids, which are like
mm,
these moving
Mm.
like figures. They're
Yep.
actually based off of Haniwa, which were like these old Japanese clay figures from like a long like thousands of years ago. And
mm,
if you look up Haniwa, they look exactly like the gyroids. And
Mhm.
I was wondering, like, why didn't they put the gyroids in the game at launch? But then when you see the new Horizons gyroids, they are so incredible. They're way
mm.
better than the other ones in the past
Mm.
games because they all have different shapes. And different sounds and different colors. So they look so detailed and so incredible compared to the past ones. So I thought, okay, I
Mm.
understand 100% that they spent their time making all of these new gyroids really creative and unique. So it was
Hmm.
worth the wait for sure.
Hmm. Another thing about this game too that we kind of mentioned but we didn't really get deep into was as you go through the game you unlock a whole bunch of different island tools, and
Mhm.
like once you get like basically super like far progressed, like you've paid off all your bills, you actually get the option to essentially you can play God and just redesign the island from
Yes.
Yeah,
scratch,
the construction modes. Yeah.
which is insane. Like how like much freedom you have to just change everything.
Yeah, they really delved into the customization aspect because in the past games, you could really just decorate your home.
Mm.
But and then they added, okay, well now you can have patterns, and now you can do like the town ordinances and whatever. But here they
Mhm.
really like let you off the leash. You can change pretty much everything. So
Mm.
Mm.
I'm curious about in future Animal Crossing games, what could they add? Because
Oh
now I
yeah.
can
Yeah.
make my island like whatever shape I want. I could like raise and lower land, put
Mm.
bridges wherever. I'm sure they have a ton of ideas for like the next Animal Crossing, but yeah, I'm really wondering like how do they make it even better? Because I think New Horizons is definitely the best game in the franchise, and it's just like the perfect Animal Crossing game to me.
I'd say so. Like
Mm.
it's the one that actually got me to like the series.
Yeah. And I think too they definitely like listened to people when they wanted like things back. Because one of my favorite things about New Leaf I forgot to mention was when you go to the tropical island and uh Cap the Kappa sings you a song on the boat ride there, which was one of my favorite parts of the game, and they brought it back where he still sings you a song on his boat
Mm.
ride. I love it. It's my favorite parts of the game. I
we
love his
also
little songs.
we also forgot to mention because of like the upgrades in technology and the introduction of autosaving, they actually
Mm.
demoted Mr. Rossetti.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although you could bring him back in New Leaf, I think
Well,
if you
now
wanted.
he's like the rescue service.
Yes.
I've never used that. I still
I
don't.
I used it. I actually had to use it once because I got stuck. I don't know how, but I somehow got myself stuck, so I had to use the rescue
So
service.
he's essentially if you somehow break the game and get stuck somehow. Is that what his?
Yeah, he can like
Yeah.
teleport you back to your home. It is
Mhm.
Got it.
like for if you get stuck somehow. I've never gotten stuck, but I guess it is possible, especially with like the terraforming
Yeah.
Mhm.
abilities. So he will just I guess he's in a helicopter or something, but he will come rescue you and then
Yeah.
teleport you back home.
Yeah.
Um, I've only used it just to like see Rossetti, even though they don't show him, but you can hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do wish they'd show him.
Yeah,
He was scary at one point, but now I kind of miss him.
Yeah.
I I also miss Gracie, who is not in this game. Well, she is if
Yeah.
you scan her amiibo card, because I do have some of the Animal Crossing amiibo cards, and she will appear in the Brewster's Cafe, so
Mm.
you can talk to her a little bit. But I kind of liked her. I wish she had her own shop, or would just come by every now and then. She was kind of
Yeah.
replaced by LaBelle, but I
Yeah.
like Gracie better.
No, I definitely miss Gracie. I kind of like forgot about her, but then you brought her up and I was like, "Oh yeah, Gracie." Like I kind of forgot that she wasn't really in New Horizons. Which makes me really sad.
Yeah,
Another thing
Oh.
that's kind of fun too is so Tom Nook is basically just like the mayor of the island now. I guess it's unclear what his
Yeah.
job is, but my favorite part is
The
like
mayor.
after
He's
they
drinking whiskey in there every time I see him.
yeah, him and then Isabel's glass of scotch next to her.
Yes.
Um, that's one of my favorite things. Is whenever you go into like the island, like city or town hall, I guess whatever that building is.
Mm.
Whenever you go in there, half the time, like both of them are just like sleeping or not actually working, and it's always like, oh, I guess I really do everything here.
Yeah.
yeah. There's only so much they can do.
Yep.
They're busy
Well,
drinking.
but Tom Nook's definitely he's always ready to take your money. So
Oh yeah.
And that was another
He's-
big moment for New Horizons because when you first start the game, Tom Nook is doing the like announcement when you're logging into the game. But then
Mhm.
once you clear the tutorial, then it goes to Isabel making the announcement. So I thought, okay, now Animal Crossing has started. Now that Isabel is here telling me what's what.
yeah, I was super happy when they brought her in because I was like, oh, I understand now why like this character is so beloved because like
Hmm.
She's just full of positivity, which is fun.
Yeah,
Mm.
we talked about it earlier. We were wondering like, how could you replace Isabel? How can you make a new character that's going to take
I
her
can't.
place? Yeah, the answer is it's
No.
impossible.
They just
I think
bring her over.
they kind of tried with maybe like Lottie, who appeared in Happy
Mm,
Home Designer and also in the DLC Happy Home
Mm.
Paradise, but she's not as cool. They got rid of Digby though, Isabel's brother, so he
yeah.
Mm.
isn't he isn't anywhere to be seen.
I have not seen Digby. What else was I know
Oh,
there's something else.
I wanted to bring
Was
up a
the
glitch.
observatory in this game? Like Celeste?
She's in the game,
She's in the game, but the observatory is not.
right?
Is that yeah. Meh.
Oh, I wanted to bring up a little glitch that me and Alex discovered by accident once. Alex, do you remember when we were visiting your island and you wanted to show me the KK slider song?
Yes.
And you were like, okay, sit in the chair and we'll listen to the song. And I got up in the chair and it broke the credit screen.
Oh yeah.
So you're supposed to, I guess, like sit in the chair and then like it'll play the cutscene. But
Yeah.
I accidentally got up in the chair right when it started, so I could just walk around and like do stuff during
Oh,
the credit
I think
sequence.
I've seen people do that before.
And I was like, Alex is like, you ruined it. And I'm like, I made it better. Like,
I know.
I remember that. That was funny.
I think another thing too that's missing is some of the like fruits, like some of the exotic fruits. Like I don't think
Yes,
you can get
like a durian.
mangoes or durian. Yeah, and I know I was pretty sad when I couldn't get all the cool fruits.
Mm.
You can get bananas, right? No,
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
just no coconuts.
yeah,
Only coconuts,
coconuts.
not bananas. I want the bananas.
My
I
island
want my
has too
bananas.
many coconuts because I just planted coconut trees on every square inch of beach.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting to think about, what did they add and what did they subtract? Because when you make a sequel, you kind of have to make these hard decisions.
Mm.
And it's really hard to please everybody.
Oh
But
yeah.
as long as, the new stuff can like supersede what they cut out, then you've got a good game. And I think at least New Horizons, even though it doesn't have exactly everything from the past games, everything new they added is like adding to the experience much, much more.
Oh yeah.
Oh, definitely. I honestly, like we had said earlier, I don't know how they're going to top it because I think this is like they've kind of reached like to me like the logical peak of this series, and I'm wondering like
Mm.
I don't think they'll do this, but I always kind of envisioned like what would an Animal Crossing like MMO be like, where like it's just a whole bunch of people all in this one massive world. I don't know if that would work though, just especially with the real time and everything.
Well, I was kind of thinking for Animal Crossing, like what if they kind of did what like The Sims did, where you could go from like an island to island, but travel kind of on your own by a boat, and you could kind of like go visit a neighbor's island, stuff like that, or maybe you could like have buildings in both of them and they're connected or something. I don't know. That's what
Mm.
I was thinking, but I
Or
don't know how
maybe
to
expand from an island to like a full on like city or something.
the world. Take over the world. That's the next Animal Crossing.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking before New Horizons came out that they could add is maybe like vacations or day trips where you can
Ooh,
just go to like a different. You kind of go to it now. You can go to like the deserted islands,
yeah,
but make it a bit more themed around something. Like you could go to like the
yeah,
mountain, and you could like
Mm,
buy items that are only on the mountain, and
yeah.
maybe do some like mini game or something.
And like, there's
Or
like little characters specific to that that like you only can find there or something. That would be fun. I like
yeah,
that idea.
yeah, or maybe
You're
Animal
hired.
Crossing in.
You're getting a job
Thank
from
you.
from
Maybe Animal
Nintendo.
Crossing. Maybe they eventually all series will eventually go to space, so you could do like a
yes,
space Animal Crossing.
Space
Animal
Go to
Animal.
Crossing
different
in
planets or
space.
whatever and
I'd play
explore
it.
and
It's
but
kind
yeah,
of like
I
a more chill version of like Spore or something.
maybe,
That'd be
but
fun.
that's yeah, aesthetically that's like so like different from everything else they've done. So I do wonder. I'm sure, Nintendo's got a billion ideas and that's why, they're smarter than us because they can think of it before we can. But I really am curious like the Switch 2's Animal Crossing. Like what are you
Mm,
going to do?
yeah,
Yeah.
especially considering how much and the same thing with this one. Like another thing I was thinking, like it, this game got really fortunate with timing of its release. Would this a sequel be able to keep the same massive like cult following that this one? Well, not really cult following, just massive like following of like new players that
Hmm.
New Horizons gained. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
Well, there's always
Yeah.
like new kids being born, so
True.
they'll
Oh yeah.
for them because one of the reasons why Nintendo is surviving so long is that they're always introducing games to a new generation of players. Even
Mm-mm.
Mm,
though like me and Alex were big Animal Crossing fans, but like William, you just got into it with New Horizons. So so
yeah,
many other people did as well. And whatever the next Animal Crossing game is, that'll be their first Animal Crossing game for our
Yeah.
new generation of people.
that is true.
And even if it like because Animal Crossing New Horizons has sold over 40 million copies, which
Mm.
is hard to top, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even
Oh
if
yeah.
like the next Animal Crossing game sells like 20 million copies, that is still a massive success.
Oh
Mm,
So
yeah.
they can go downhill for quite a while and still be totally okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
On honestly, I don't. Even if a Switch 2 does come out, I don't see the Switch like the current Switch going anywhere anytime soon
No.
because it's just still too popular. Like
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be kind of an overlap for a while between the two if that does happen. Kind of like how the
Yeah.
3DS kind of lived on for a while there.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the best selling Pokemon game is Red and Blue, Pokemon Generation 1.
Mm.
Mm.
I think they're about 32 million. And that's yet to be sorry, that is yet to been sorry, words are hard. It is yet
But
to be
they
topped.
are.
No Pokemon generation has outsold Generation One, but
Yeah.
Pokemon is okay.
Mm.
It's still trucking along. They're still
Yeah.
making money,
They
so
don't
they don't
even
have.
They'll never not make money.
they don't
Yeah,
even have they don't have to finish their games anymore. They can just release broken piles of garbage
yeah.
and they'll still sell.
Yeah, the
So
Pokemon can just fall off of hills and it's fine.
I think Animal Crossing is definitely got that root of like the core fans, and it's got the appeal to the new generation of gamers. So
Mm.
even though New Horizons might not be topped in sales ever, I think there's still a lot of great games to come in the
Mm.
franchise.
Yeah. Well,
And
because
honestly,
I
oh
oh, I
no,
was just gonna
you go ahead.
say, I was thinking back to like when I was playing New Leaf, and I was like, how are they gonna top New Leaf? Like this game was awesome. So
Mm,
I kind of have to remember with this one, it's like, yeah, they'll find a way. They're gonna find a
yeah,
way to top this game. Like I already know it because like I was thinking the same thing with New Leaf. Like, I thought that game was amazing, and then this came out, I was like, holy crap, this is great. You know?
I just wonder if we're gonna get like the same like memes we got from the launch of this game because I still remember like when they announced this game, it was coming out on the same day as Doom Immortal, and you got all the Isabel Doom
yes.
Yeah.
memes going around for a while there. Like there was a lot going on at the time of New Horizons launch, and not all of it was good, obviously, but a lot of it was very positive. And
Mm.
I- honestly, it's just one of those like to me, I guess to like wrap this whole conversation we've started up. To me, it's one of the key reasons to me why Nintendo is exactly what Nintendo is. Like they can just come up with something that can appeal to everybody no matter what kind of person you are,
Mm.
and it will still be that same long lasting like fun. Like years down the line, people are still going to remember New Horizons
Mm,
like
definitely.
the same way people remember the original game, original Animal Crossing or Wild World
Mm.
or New Leaf. I'd say City Folk, but apparently people don't remember that one very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
Yeah, one interesting thing about Animal Crossing is that they're not going to remake any of the games, unlike,
No.
say,
No.
Mario or Zelda, which they could remake ad infinitum, or even like Fire Emblem. They can just crank out Fire Emblem remakes for decades. But Animal Crossing, they can only kind of go up. They can't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because there's just to me, it's like a little out of the box, but it's like the Tales series where like once you play one from like a certain point, it is very hard to go back to an older one
Yeah.
Hmm,
because there's just so much new stuff that's been added and like changed that like once you get used to it, it's so hard to go back to like not having access to all these features and stuff.
right.
Yeah. Cause I mean I can't go back to not crafting and stuff. Like it just I don't think I'll be able to. Like I think I'm so used to the New Horizons format that even if I went back to New Leaf, like I don't think it would be the same. And I don't want to
No,
ruin those memories.
mm, I think that's the key. But yeah, so we've hit about an hour and a half. Anyone else have any final things they'd like to say about Animal Crossing before we wrap this up?
If you haven't played it, you should play
Definitely.
it.
Start with New Horizons. Even though you might think, well, the zeitgeist has passed. Are people still playing it? trust me, a lot of people are still playing Animal
Oh
Crossing New
yeah.
Horizons, and
Mm.
it's got all the content that it's ever going to have. So now it's a great time to jump in.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I kind of after this conversation now, I kind of want to pick it up again.
Me
Yeah,
Even
me
too.
though
too.
even though it's gonna take me about 4 hours to clean everything up because
Mm.
Yeah.
God knows how many
Oh yeah.
weeds and like
Ooh.
but my villagers will still be there. They're gonna ask me how my long vacation was again.
How was your 2-year vacation?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I also need to download the new content from the Happy Home Designer
Mm.
add-in for that one. So I'm definitely gonna pick this up and play it again soon
yep. I've
because
just
I
put
love
Alex.
this game.
Alex is gonna go on a 4-month binge now.
Yes. Goodbye. I'll see you in 4 months. Just kidding.
Nice.
You live in my house.
That is true. So yeah, I guess to wrap this up though, Mono, do you want to like plug all your stuff again?
Sure. I'm the host of Tokyo Game Life, which is Tokyo. Sorry, I'm the host of Tokyo Game Life, which is a Tokyo-based video game podcast focusing on Nintendo and gaming culture in Japan's capital. Every episode, I do a feature, mostly a place to visit in Tokyo that's gaming related, uh, or a feature of something interesting in terms of Japanese gaming culture. Some of my past features. Recently, I did one on the Marufukuro Hotel, which is Nintendo's old headquarters in Kyoto.
Oh,
When they
nice.
made Hanafuda cards, it's
Ooh.
converted into a hotel. So I interviewed somebody who visited there. And I also talk about a lot of cool places to visit in Tokyo. Like if you want to go Pokemon card shopping in Tokyo, I have a episode about where you should go. And then I also have episodes about different like series or different games relating to Japan. I have one on Boku no Natsuyasumi, which is a bit similar to Animal Crossing, in that it's about a child living their summer vacation. And I interview a lot of interesting people who are a lot smarter than I am. So if you listen to this podcast and thought, well, this guy's not that great, trust me, I have even better people on my podcast as guests.
Oh no,
So
you've already made us you've already made us feel dumb.
Oh
So
yeah.
and
with how much like you just know, but
and
I'll definitely drop the links and stuff for
Yes.
your show.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, well, once again though, thanks for coming on, dude.
Thank you so much.
This was a great conversation. So
Yeah.
we completely topped our original Animal Crossing
Oh
episode.
yeah.
Awesome. As long as we did that, I'm happy.
All right. But anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us on the Gaming Collecting Podcast. The Gaming Collecting Podcast can be found on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're made with Anchor Podcasts, and you can follow us on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Good Pods. And until next time, guys, we will see you all later.
Pay for your house or Tom Nook's gonna get you.